Hi, in this video we're going to use Amplify Fusion and Amazon Cognito to add OAuth2 client credentials authentication to an API that we're proxying in Amplify Fusion. So continuing from the last video where we used the PetStore API, we called it CatStore, and we proxied it in Fusion, and then we added API key authentication with a key name called XAPI key. And if I come into Postman, you can see that that works. And if I turn off authentication, you see that it doesn't. So we are securing our API currently with API key. So what we want to do is we want to use the Amazon Cognito service to add OAuth2 security to our API. So first in Amazon Cognito, we need to create a user pool, and I will just accept the default name, and this is a machine-to-machine application, and I'm going to create the user directory. I'm going to grab this, oh no, not yet. What we're going to do now is we are going to go to Overview. And I do need this token signing key URL, and I'm going to put this in my notepad. And the next thing we need to do is we need to create an app client. So here I have an app client, and if I open that up, I can see my client ID, and I can see my secret. I can just copy that. And the other thing I have here is a curl command to get a token. To get a token. So let me paste that up here. And you see that I need to replace my secret in there. And also it's important to note that this is my token URL. I'll need that later. But I will paste the secret. And now let's call this. So let me call that, and I have a token. And the reason I need this token is I'd like to find out what the client ID claim and scope claim are, because I'm going to need that in Amplify Fusion. Alright, so I take that token and I'll go over to jwt.io and let's paste that in, and I can see here that the claim table, well, there's the JSON, but scope and client underscore ID are what I need. So I'll copy that. And client underscore ID. And I think I have everything I need now. So let's come back over here to Amplify Fusion. Let's disable this. Now, in order to add OAuth authentication, I need a governance role, and my governance role will require an identity provider. So let's start off with identity provider, and I come down here to manager, come to the bottom identity provider, and let's add an identity provider. So this is Cognito. And you see I need that JWKS URL, that's right here. And I need the client ID claim, so that's client underscore ID. And the scope claim was scope. And then I need a token URL. So we saw the token URL was provided incognito in the UI. And this is for client credentials. Okay, oh, I lost my URL. There's the URL. And let's add that. And we can now save. So now I have an identity provider defined. I can come back over here to my API project. And under security, I can select OAuth2. And for governance role, we can create a governance role. So I'm going to call this Cognito OAuth. And for the identity provider, we select the Cognito identity provider we just created, and then we click Create. And then we click Save. Okay, so at this point I can enable my API, and I can come over here to Postman. I can select OAuth2. Let me scroll down here to the bottom, and I can start entering my information. So I need my access token URL, that's right here. And then I need a client ID and secret. And come down here and get a new access token. That worked. And I can use that token, and then we can call our API, and it doesn't work. Well, we know why it doesn't work. If you recall from the last video on API key, I also need to add the credentials to an application. So if you recall, I had an application before. It was called Test App. And if you come in here, Test App does have my cat store from the Getting Started project and the data plane, and it actually has an API key, but I'm not using API key authentication anymore. So we need to add an OAuth2 credential, and I'll call this cred1. Oops. Cred1, I'm provisioning it manually, and I need that client ID. If I enter the client ID, click OK, and save. Then it should work. So in this video, we saw how to use Amplify Fusion and Amazon Cognito to add OAuth2 client credentials authentication to an API that we're proxying in Amplify Fusion. Thank you.